Okay, awesome. I'm so excited to be back with another episode of the podcast. And I have an amazing, amazing guest with me today, Nadia. So, for those people who don't know you, Nadia, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me, Kat. I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm Nadia. I am a photographer. I guess that's how everyone starts on here, right? I'm a photographer. I used to be a destination wedding photographer. I used to live in Germany. I was one of like the first wave of like, those freelance digital wedding photographers in 2009, 2010 in Europe. And I did that up until 2019 and quit weddings. Now I'm a portrait photographer, very happily so, and a writer. Love writing and sharing. That's just another like medium to express myself, the same as photography. It's just mediums, isn't it? I live in England now. I live in London. I have 2 cats, and I'm an ambassador for Nikon.
Awesome. So, the reason that I wanted to have this chat with you today on the podcast was after listening to a wonderful presentation that you did for Snap. And it made me think so much about some of the parallels of my own journey with my wedding photography business, where I see myself going in the future. And that is around the idea of whether wedding photography and being a wedding photographer has an expiry date. So yeah, I mean, you already mentioned like where you started, what year, and you said that you stopped being a wedding photographer in 2019.
Yeah.
So that was your last season.
Mm-hmm.
So was there a specific moment or a specific catalyst that triggered that decision to move out of weddings?
There was definitely a moment where I knew I really, really have to do this now. I have to make this decision. I have to stop. But there was a build up, obviously, to that moment. It didn't just happen on a whim. Over the years of like 10 years of doing weddings, I've always like adjusted my business model and who I was serving according to how I was changing. So, I adjusted it to like just doing small weddings or just doing elopements, then like doing mostly abroad, then for a little while just local, just adjusting it like however I needed it and how I changed. And I think so probably the last 3 years of me being a wedding photographer, I already wanted out. Like I already knew this is over. But as you know, as we all know, it's like it's scary. Obviously, it's good money. It was my only income. Um, Apart from like teaching as well and workshops, but just like the whole wedding industry was such a big part of my identity and of my livelihood. So the inquiries come in and the big deposits come in, and it's like really hard to go like, no, I'm just not doing that anymore, because when you don't have a plan, an exit plan, and when you don't have an idea what to do otherwise. So it was like about 3 years where I already like knew something is off, and this might be over for me, but it took like 3 full years to actually make that decision. And I knew I made that decision at the airport. um, I was at the airport in London on my way to Mykonos for a wedding, which was a lovely wedding, incredible couple. But I had a panic attack in the toilet in the bathroom of the airport, and I like had to get out like with help from other people, and then help from my ex-husband, who was obviously also there because he was shooting with me. And I somehow managed to get on that flight, but my whole body was like in such a panic state and an anxious state, like I don't want to get on this plane, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's when I made the decision, this is it. That was like October 2018. And obviously I already had stuff booked in for the following season, but I didn't take anything else other than the stuff that I had already booked in. So I think in 2019 I had about 8 weddings or so. And that was it. That was my season done. That was kind of the ultimate, the point where I made the decision. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, I'd love to know if there was, because you said it was like a build up of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where, from conversations that I've had with other people, like, this is where it can be really like personal things about kind of just sometimes these almost signs of this maybe doesn't align with me anymore. It doesn't align with my values or my life. Were there any sort of specific signs, moments, catalysts where you were like, that helped you kind of obviously onto that decision before the point of, that awful day at the airport?
Yeah, definitely. So I think when I started off wedding photography, as I think most of us feel that way, it was amazing. It was incredible. I was like, this is my dream job. I found my dream job. This is incredible. Everyone's happy, happy occasion, beautiful people, beautiful places. And then I started doing destination for the most part of those 10 years, and it was so beautiful. And I'm so grateful for that time. Absolutely grateful for that time. But there's so many, like with any job and with any dream job, there's also so many downsides, right? And it really depends what kind of downsides you're willing to live with, right? And which ones you're fine with your lifestyle and all of that, and who you are. And there were so many things. So for one, I think one of the biggest things was the travel. Not just abroad, even if I just had to, get on the motorway for 2 hours, or it was just, it getting to me, like the whole travel, the organization of the travel, airports, rental cars, researching hotels, researching places, researching cars, booking everything, and doing that for 10 years. All the time by myself, and then getting to these places, and sometimes they're really remote, and all of that, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just so exhausting, and taxing on my body and my mental health. I started getting like really, yeah, anxious about it. Started getting the feeling of, I just want to stay at home. I don't want to even, like, yeah, leave my city, and leave my house. um so the travel was one. I know everyone thinks that's like super glamorous and like super amazing. I'm sure you get that too. And people think you're living the life, and it is amazing in so many ways, for sure. I'm so grateful for the places I was able to see and the people I was able to meet in these places. It's just fantastic. Like, so many people don't get to do that. But there's definitely a downside. Like, it is anxiety inducing, and I'm not the only one that has experienced that. I know, talking to many people, whether they're wedding photographers or they do something else and they have to travel for work, who say similar things. And yes, sometimes you can combine the travel with a little break or a little holiday, but not all the time. And I literally had, sometimes in 2018 especially, I had like 3 countries in 1 week sometimes, which was insane and absolutely my fault. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to be so greedy. But yeah, 3, even 2 countries a week. It's just like, I'm like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Why were you doing that? So for one, it was the travel that slowly, the first 5, 6 years was fun, like, and then slowly the scale tipped to it not being fun anymore. And then it was weddings themselves. So they started becoming a big issue for me. The whole Just the whole wedding day, like the whole, and first of all, like the length of them, to have to be there for 8, 10, 12, 14 hours, like however long the party, or like a whole weekend if you're photographing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I know of friends who photographed weddings for like a whole week, abroad. Like, the length of them started to really get to me, being away from home for so long, but also being among so many people for so long. The whole setup, I started feeling like I was on the set of a movie with every wedding. um in the beginning I thought, oh, weddings are so amazing, they have all these real human emotions. And after a decade of doing them, I was like, actually, I'm not sure if that's true. Like, of course, there are emotions, they are there, but it's almost like they're anticipated, like they're expected. Like everyone knows when to cheer and everyone knows when to cry, even though you don't actually know why you're crying. Like, why are you crying? I don't know, when the bride walks down the aisle. What's so sad about that? Or so, what is the, like, it's just almost expected, like, and now, everyone gets the confetti and now you cheer, like everyone knows what to do, and when to bring out what emotion. It's almost like a film set. Like, that's how I
Mm.
felt after 10 years of seeing that. Of course, for the people involved, it's not, because it's the first time for them, or whatever time, like they don't experience that many weddings in their life as wedding photographers. For them, it's absolutely real. I'm not saying they're faking it at all, but yeah, as a wedding photographer, it's like, yeah, what people are going to do. When they're crying, when they're cheering, when they're laughing. It's like all of these emotions are already anticipated, so you do feel like you are on a film set in a way. And I
Mm.
started resenting the whole mindlessness that can be found in weddings, where people, just do things because that's how you do them. You cut the cake and everyone applauds and cheers. I don't know why people applaud when when the couple cuts the cake. It's like, what's so great about that? Like, what is that scene even in that act? Or, down to the clothing, what people wear and the things they say and do, or where they get married. Couples getting married in certain places they have no connection to, just because of their family, because the parents wanted, or whatever. Like, it's all like these mindless things, that just pile up, pile up, pile up. And I started questioning everything, like, why this, why that, why are you doing this? And was finding that couples weren't questioning most of the stuff they did. It's just like, well, that's what you do, right?
Mm.
And that really started pissing me off. And now that it's been 5 years that I've stepped away, and I've, in the meantime, found out that I have ADHD, and which comes a lot with, like, over the years trying to mask or hide, like, how you're feeling, how you're thinking, and not thinking like everyone else, and um, not fitting in. And I realized that also, I think a big part of me feeling physically feeling bad at weddings, whenever I was at a wedding, might have been also part of that, because being around all these strangers where I have to perform and put on an act, it just reached the limit. Like, I couldn't do it anymore. It was fine for a few years, and I reached a point where I can't do this anymore. I feel physically, not as a guest, because you can just blend in, but like as a photographer, I at a wedding, I felt like I was in a skin that was like 3 sizes too tight. Like, I have to burst out of this. I can't, like, it's a physical reaction.
Mm.
I don't know if you feel that, but like, I hope some people listening know what that feels like, where it's just like a physical, literal, visceral reaction to it. I couldn't be there. I felt like screaming, and I couldn't scream, of course. And I think, now looking back, knowing what I know now, I think that might have been part of that process of resenting, of questioning everything, of feeling like, oh my gosh, this is also fake, also weird. I'm so unhappy here. Um, Part of that process was also like, I can't perform anymore. I don't want to perform anymore. I've reached the limit. Because with therapy and healing and all of that, it was just like, yeah, coming more and more home to myself. And that meant in all kinds of areas of life, just shedding masks. And
Mm.
so the wedding photographer mask was one of those, where I was like, oof, this requires way too much performance that I don't want to do anymore. So that was I think part of it as well.
Yeah, see, this is where I find it super interesting, because even though you said you shot elopements, I see so many parallels with what I do, and I only shoot elopements now. But there's so many things where I'm just like, oh, it's not the same as how I feel, but there's so many similarities. So for me, even with elopements, one of the big things, there's still those pressures of why are we doing this and should we have all these things. And a big one for me that I still am really struggling to grapple with is the sustainability of it, even when it's just two people. Of like, okay, well, it's just this one day, so it gives us the chance, it gives us the free pass to do whatever we want, to go wherever we want. We can be wasteful, we can pollute taking helicopter rides or flying around the world. And while I'm trying to grapple with my conflicts around that by trying to help people do things more sustainably, I still see it as this unnecessary thing, almost like to buy the dress, to have this thing. It's like, again, going back to that performative element of, you can celebrate your commitment, this next stage in your relationship, without having this big ceremonial thing, even if it's just the two of you there. And that's certainly been, or it is something that I'm constantly trying to work. Where does this fit into my life and my values, when I don't believe in doing things just because, it's a special occasion? And I don't, I don't agree with doing things that can be potentially harmful to places, to people. And it's really hard, but it's really interesting when you said about like the suit, the performance that you give. And one of the most exhausting things that I find with elopements is, I feel also a lot like I'm myself, but I'm not really myself, because myself is not when I'm at an elopement, I'm the outgoing one. I'm talking all the time. I'm telling them. And, some of it is from a pure excitement, joy of like, oh, you guys look amazing right now. This is really beautiful. Or like, walking along and showing them different things and going, oh, do you know about this type of rock that we're in? And there's moments where that is what I would do anyway. But it's the fact that I'm doing that, I'm being that enthusiastic person of, this is amazing, this is, oh, everything is so beautiful. And the energy that I put into that, like, literally, if I didn't have to, I don't book more than one in a week, because I know that I am less physically exhausted, but just mentally, like when I come home, like that's it. The next day, I sit there and I'll back up stuff and I'll get it sent to my editors, but I don't have the capacity for anything, because it's like literally, it's like turning up and being. And it was really interesting. Like, I really noticed that this year with working with new vendors that I'd not worked with before, or even some couples were just like, I can't believe you've been doing this as long as you've been doing it, and you're still so passionate, you're still so enthusiastic about everything that you do, and we really feel like your energy and your love for what you do the whole day. And it's just like, I just wanted to go, this is a role that I'm playing. Like, it's not that I don't enjoy it, but it's like, this is what I feel like I have to bring to every experience. And it's a lot. And for me as well, I noticed this so much, especially since COVID. The working specifically for me in elopements was the responsibility. Because there's this idea that, especially when it's an elopement, you only need a photographer, you don't need anyone else. The photographer can help you find all the amazing locations, they can plan the timeline for the day. And it's like, I do all of these things. I'm going to suggest certain locations at certain times of day because I know that they're beautiful at that time of day. But then it really weighs on me, what if the weather's bad? And the whole reason we chose to do sunrise in that location is because it's a beautiful sunrise, and then it's not. and it's raining. And I take them to a backup location, which wasn't the one they've pictured. And again, this is my internal monologue, but it's like the whole pressure that's put on couples for a wedding day is this should be the best day of your life. So then I have this, thing going through my mind of this isn't the plan that they've been building up in their head for the last however many months. And it really messes with me mentally as well then. Of like, can my backup plan live up to these expectations that they had? And it's so tough. Like, and that's, one of the many reasons why I am feeling more and more like just scaling down, stepping back. Like for me, I don't think I want to quit completely, but it's very much of, I don't want to take any of these ones that do feel just like a performative photo shoot somewhere pretty. That's not like that's not why I'm doing this. It's not why I want to keep doing it. And it just really, it's interesting how it's like kind of, you grow. I think the longer you do it, like you said, I've evolved my business constantly to be like, okay, I don't enjoy those types of weddings, so let's not do that. For me, I stopped traveling because I couldn't personally like do that in integrity, knowing that I believe that sustainability is important and that I want to do everything I can in the fight against the climate emergency. And even with all of those changes, I still have these thoughts of like, I don't know how much longer I want to do this. But then there is, and I'd love to hear how you've gone through this. There is that thought of, but what if I quit now? There's the other people going, but you've put all this work into building something. You spent so many years, and it's like, oh, well, is it just because you're, or there's that thought in my mind of people going, or are you just not booking anymore? Are people just not booking you? Are you past it? You're, last year's news. And like that kind of whole journey of how will other people perceive me wanting to step back? Like how has that been for you?
Thank you for sharing that. Like also your part of like the story definitely resonates. And I've had like the feeling too, like I wonder if you feel like that when you sometimes are at elopements and you feel like they're just doing this for the photos. Like they're just doing this because it's a cool thing to do right now and they want pretty photos like on Pinterest. Like that's the only reason why they're doing all of this stuff. Like, right? Like I've sometimes, as much as I loved elopements, and again, like they did feel like more real to me, more genuine at first, but then some of them were like, yeah, I think you're just doing this for photos.
Absolutely. And I am trying to find any way I can to not work with those kinds of people.
It's very, very interesting. But yeah, to your question, oh my God, yes, I've definitely had those thoughts. I think that's why it also took me so long to get out and to really stop, because it was such a big part of my identity. People now might not know, or the people that are our age, the photographers our age might know. But I was pretty known, like in Europe, Germany, all across Europe, and was invited to speak, on many stages, different things. Obviously, also as a Nikon ambassador, but outside of that, I taught, I was recognized, people were like coming to me for workshops to learn, for advice, blah, blah, for anything. And it was like, yeah, Nadia Meli, international wedding photographer. And so I put my identity on that as well, right? And I was like, if I don't have that, then who am I? And what are people going to say? Have I just like, is this it? Have I peaked? Like this was like 10 years of wedding photography and that's it. That was it. Like, what am I going to do next? Was that it for me? And there was a lot of fear and stuff around, just my ego and how people will talk about me and what they will say. I felt like, in a way, like I was stepping backwards. When in reality I am growing forward, but it felt like in a way stepping backwards and giving up something so huge something so successful and something that was giving me validation and recognition by others. However, I think, yeah, I mean, I definitely reached like my cap, like mentally and physically. So my body and my mind was like doing the decision for me. I'm like, I don't care anymore. Like, I have to do this. I think
Mm.
you reach that point where the pain is bigger than the fear. When your pain is just so much bigger, and your will to change is so much bigger than the fear of uncertainty, than the fear of other people, then you just do it. Like, you don't care anymore. And I think the time invested in something, whether that's a business or a relationship, the time invested in growing something can never be the reason why you stay. Because the the time, like, that you invest in something, it is valid, it's worth something, right? For sure. And it's a beautiful thing, but it doesn't like define. For example, if you look, like, at a relationship, or yeah, even business, um the time doesn't define kind of the value of it, the like, it's not measured in time, like what you're worth, what your work is worth. Um the connection, the bond, because I also left my marriage in the same year as well. It's like, it's not measured in time. Sometimes we meet people, and we have a connection with them right away, and they love us well right away, and someone who's known us for years and decades wasn't able to. So it's never like, just, the worth of something is never measured in time. Otherwise, nobody would ever change anything. if
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
Right, like, people leave businesses all the time. They build them and then they sell them, or they close them, because when you know inside of you that it's just time to close it down, it's just time to leave, it's just time to stop, it's just the right time. There's nothing, as I said, like, when the pain is too big,
Yeah.
or like bigger than the fear, there's nothing that will stop you. And I think that's how people know when to stop and when to leave. Because I get that question, obviously, after the Snap talk as well. People are like, so, how did you know it was right to leave or to stop when you did? And I think it's, yeah, when you really feel like that pain is bigger than your fear of anything else. If you still enjoy weddings, and you're still happy there, and even if it's a bit painful, it's a bit annoying, but you still enjoy them, then it's maybe not your time yet.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, once that becomes bigger than the fear, you don't care anymore. Like, I don't care anymore what people say about me. I really don't care.
Yeah, I think that's really a really good like point. And I think it's almost that thing of, if I think about, conversations I've had with my coaching clients, of also kind of knowing, is this like a gut feeling? Is this an intuition feeling that you're then trying to rationalize or talk yourself out of? Which I think, like, this kind of a decision, like, most people in their gut, they know what's the right decision, but then it comes, that fear talk, that rationalization of, but oh, I need to earn money somehow, but I've spent, like you said, the sunken cost thing, I've spent this many years building it, I've invested this much money into it to walk away now, why would I leave it when it's working? But it is that thing of like, but you know what's the right decision for you, and it's
Yeah.
almost, I think, sometimes giving yourself the permission to say, I'm okay to let this go now. Like,
Yeah. And it's only working because you said, what, yeah, why would I leave it? It's working, but it's only working on the outside.
yeah,
It's only working, like, in terms of the facade. Like, I look successful, I have the jobs, I have the money, I have the reputation and the image, but on the inside, I am sick, I am unhappy, I am miserable, I am wilting away on the inside. So, like, what good is it if it's just working for other people so that they
yeah,
can be happy, like, looking at me, and my ego can be happy, being like, yay, I'm validated, but I'm sick. Like, so if something is working just on the outside, I don't care like if I've invested millions or 20 years, it has to go. It has to stop. Like if it's only working in terms of the outside, but not on the inside as well,
Yeah.
it's worth nothing, honestly.
Yeah. So for you, when you finally accepted that kind of decision, I guess that you'd been kind of thinking through for a while, when you finally knew, okay, right, this is the time, had you already been thinking of like an exit strategy or what you would do next, or was it kind of just that moment of, I'm not doing weddings anymore, now I need to find out what I'm going to do next?
Mm. Well, I don't think like I had a full on strategy. Um, I knew like I could get by for a little bit with like my Nikon ambassador money, um, without like having like weddings,
Yeah.
you know, and yeah, no like big income, no big deposits. Like I had some savings and my ambassadorship income. So I was like, okay, I did the math. I'm like, okay, I can get by for this many months. But it wasn't really like a full blown strategy. And I still felt like very much, I knew I wanted to still be a photographer. I
Yeah.
knew I wanted to still like work with people, do photography. So portrait photography felt like really natural to get into that. But I also had that feeling of, well, I do need safety because this is not going to be the big income that I used to have. So I had like yeah, I had the Nikon ambassadorship, and I had a part-time job with PicTime at first, and then with Pixieset after a year and a half, like, and during the pandemic and stuff, just to have like a little bit of like stability every month, while I was trying to build that portrait photography business. Like I knew, again, not like a big ass strategy, but I knew like I want to stay in it. I want to still be a photographer. Um, but I need a structure around this to help me live, basically. So that's kind of how I got into it. But then we all know what happened in 2020. So
Yeah.
it all was like all my plans and ideas kind of went out the window.
Awesome. And fast forwarding to today, how do you feel when you look back at your journey, like, and where you are now? Do you see yourself doing what you're doing now for a long time? Do you miss the weddings at all?
Mm. Um, I'll take the last question first. No, I do not miss weddings at all. Like zero. I miss the money. But I don't miss weddings at all. I helped my friend Amy recently shoot a wedding because she really needed an assistant, and it was like a last minute thing, and she was desperate, and I was like, okay, I'll help you. And I think it was 10 or 12 hours. Um, and I was like, oh, when is this over? It was like physical pain. I was like, oh, I'm not talking about my feet. It was like literally like physical pain. And I just knew, yeah, this is not for me. I even after I quit, I even shot a friend's wedding, a really good friend's wedding. It was really small in Brighton, by the sea, like with a little restaurant after. Like it was really simple, really easygoing, nothing, no pressure on me, no forcing anything. And it was people I knew and loved, and I hated photographing it.
Mm.
I really hated it. And I was like, and normally, like years before that, I would have loved doing a wedding like that. And especially these are people I love and they're my friends. And I hated shooting it. I didn't hate the wedding, but like just being the photographer, I hated it. And that confirmed to me again, like, wow, if I'm
Mm.
not even enjoying this, like this really chill, small friend's wedding, I've really made the right decision. I really did. So I do not miss them at all. Not one bit. I miss, you know what I miss? I miss being a wedding guest. Like, can anyone invite me to their wedding? Like, just as a guest, like, I want to dress up. look really nice. Like, I miss being a guest at a wedding. So if anyone wants to, just have me crash their wedding, please. I'm available. But yeah, my journey, gosh, I think I can't even like, well, yes, I can call it a journey, but I'm still on that journey.
Mhm.
I'm not done by any means. I don't think at this point that there's like a time where I'll be like, I'm done. I've made it. I'm definitely still on this journey. The 2 years of like pandemics and lockdowns definitely changed a lot of things for me, and the timeline I had and the plans. And then I moved to London last year to get more connections, more work here, which has definitely massively helped. But I'm still very much building this photography portrait business. Like, I'm still on this journey. Ideally, I would love to work more with film, TV, magazines, and do portraits in those circles. And that's really why I came here. And I did some of it. Like last year, I worked with a TV, and this year I worked with BAFTA and did some work for them, which was amazing. So there's like slowly things are moving, where I don't just have to rely on private clients, because that's just not enough. In terms of like livelihood in London, making like a life in London. So definitely want to get like into those circles with portrait photography. But I'm still building it. I'm still very, very much on a journey. It's been, the last 5 years have been insane, with the pandemic, going through it alone, with like this wobbly income. And the last year and a half, almost 2 years in London, has been such a wild ride, in terms of what has happened, the people I've met, the opportunities I got, but also the literally uphill climb, uphill fight. And while I felt for a long time like, oh, I feel like I went backwards and I
Mm.
stepped backwards and I'm starting from zero and I'm a failure. I've come now just, and really through the support of friends and strangers who like have worked with me, come to really accept and realize I'm not starting from zero. I have so much experience under my belt and so much knowledge and so much skill. Um, and I'm really good at what I do. And this is just a building on top of what's already there, what was there. I'm just building on top of that. And like with anything new that you build, it just takes time.
And this may seem unrelated, but in my mind it's not. I'd love to know what sets your soul on fire.
Oh, what sets my soul on fire? Truth sets my soul on fire. When people live in their truth, when they're able to like communicate it with words and with their life, when you can tell they're really aligned. When you're in the presence of someone who's aligned with their truth, who is in integrity with themselves and is not just talking the talk, but then doing something completely different, that makes me so excited. I get like really, really fired up by that. Because I'm also on that journey, obviously, and I have been for years. And I know how hard it is, how hard and painful it is to do that. It's really, really difficult. It's not fluffy. It's not woohoo spiritual rainbows. It's the hardest thing to live in integrity with yourself. Like, you might mess up your whole life. You might, quote unquote, mess up. You might set fire to everything, like burn everything down. People might look at you and think, what is this person doing? Nothing makes sense. And sometimes it won't even make sense to you, at first. But it's such an incredible, liberating feeling when you know you're in truth, you're in integrity. That really, really sets my soul on fire. Probably the biggest thing. And then obviously other things like, other people and connecting with them. But I think that is that's like the biggest thing that sets me on fire is this. Yeah. I love that question.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's so like closely linked with, especially if there's anyone listening who's having that kind of, conversation either with someone else or just within themselves of, do I want to do this anymore? And I feel like just asking yourself that question, what sets your soul on fire? If it's not shooting
Yeah.
weddings, and your first answer is anything that does not align with that lifestyle of being a wedding photographer, then you've kind of almost, for me, that's your answer of like, then go to
Mm-hmm.
how can you go to that thing that does? And I
Mm-hmm.
see that in what you're doing now, the the passion, the alignment. It feels like, for me as someone watching, of your writing, your photography, that it really shines in this journey that you're on now, and
Thank you.
I
Oh,
love it.
that makes me really happy. Thank you. Yeah, like this is ultimately why I create, I think why a lot of artists probably create. This is why I'm a photographer, or why I use photography and why I use words and writing. It's truth. Truth is the reason. I'm a photographer because of truth. I'm only interested in truth. That's why I'm not like a big, I don't want to be a fashion photographer. I don't want to do like a lot of conceptual photography unless a client comes to me with that idea. I'll do it, absolutely. But I'm not that person. Because I'm interested in reality, in the reality of things. So that's and I just use photography and the connection to other people, and I use words to do that and to seek truth, I guess, and to express it hopefully. um that's really the most beautiful thing, because who's got time for lies? Like, you have one life. Like, I don't have time for lies anymore. What does set your soul on fire?
For me, whew, gosh, damn it, reversing the question on me. um I think for me it's, I don't know, there's different things. For me it's having this like such deep ingrained appreciation, gratitude, sense of wonder for the world that we live in,
Mm.
and creating, and this isn't my word, but it's the best word that I can come up with, a legacy that is bigger than you, that leaves things better than they were before. um and so that's a big thing that keeps kind of coming back to me with, yeah, with my sort of own thoughts around weddings. Is like, how is this making the world better,
Mm.
especially in this the state that it is in and the direction it is going? It's like, I want to, for me it's like, I want to change things for, not just for an individual person, but I'd love people to go for their dreams, but in a way that doesn't put their own personal gain above the whole planet, the everyone. And I'm not a people person, but this whole thing of like that everyone, everything is connected,
Mhm.
and that we need to celebrate and respect and treasure that, not take what we can from it. And so
Mhm.
I think that's a big thing that drives me, is how can we look out for other people? How can we approach everything with kindness, with gratitude, and create a better place rather than one that's, yeah, not so great.
I love that. I love that. And that's how you will change over time, right? And evolve, because
Mm.
you will align your your job and whatever you do professionally. You will align that over time more and more to what you value the most, right? That's a normal thing. And
Yeah.
you can feel when it like goes against that, and it's like almost grating, right? It rubs you the wrong
Mm.
way, and you will know when it's really time to stop or to make a change, because it just doesn't work with what sets you on fire and what aligns, what is your truth. So
Yeah.
it's just, I think, a natural evolution to change. And it shouldn't be, those little signs of your body shouldn't be ignored. um when yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'd love to know, like, um if you have a piece of advice for somebody who's listening to this, who is thinking, no matter how long they've been in the business, whether you've been a wedding photographer for 1 year or you've been doing it for 10 years, 20 years, and you're wondering if this really is for you, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I know that all wedding photographers will reach that point where they multiple times where they ask themselves, is this still it? And I think, yeah, that would be the first advice would probably be to always inquire with yourself, check in regularly, especially if you feel very depleted from it, not just the normal, wedding photographer hangover on a Sunday, which is normal during summer. But if you really feel in your core, there's like this exhaustion and there's something out of alignment, just inquire with yourself. Be honest with yourself, look at the fear that you have about leaving. And because as I said, like once your pain is bigger than your fear, you will take that step anyway. So you'll know. I don't have to tell you when the time is. You will know when the time is. I would just maybe advise, which is something I didn't really do. It depends also on your personality, like it can be useful sometimes, it can be really bad sometimes, to maybe have like some ideas, some plans of what to do after, of where you want to go. If you have a backup, if you have help and support, use that support, whether that's family, friends, partner that can help you, support you on your way out, then use that. Your health, mental and physical, is so much more important than your image, your reputation, your bank account. At the end of the day, I just literally jumped out, stopped taking inquiries from one day to the next. As soon as I made that decision, I just didn't take any more. And as I said, I didn't have a big strategy or like a big exit plan, and I didn't have a lot of backup. And I think sometimes, should I maybe, have continued doing weddings for another year or two? Should I, have been more quote unquote smart about it, and like with all the planning and saving up this amount of money first and stuff like that? But all of those questions, they're meaningless now anyway, because it's done, it's over. And I knew that, I know looking back that I would have probably caused even more damage to my body if I just had continued for another year or two. I already caused it a lot of damage as it is. So I'm glad I didn't, So yeah, if you can, make a plan, save up, or, have multiple incomes, or live with your parents for a while, whatever it is, prioritize your health. Prioritize your health over everything. Like, your image doesn't mean shit, what other people think of you doesn't mean anything. They don't have to live your life, you have to live it. So I would just say inquire with yourself, be honest with yourself, and maybe make a plan. There's definitely a life after wedding photography. That isn't it. And I think even like getting out of that bubble is really nice to see. There's so many other people who've changed careers, started 3 or 4 businesses. Like, they've just done different things in life. So it's really nice to get out of that wedding photography bubble where you think, oh my gosh, I'm stuck. This is it for the rest of my life now. Because it is good money, and I think whenever you have that, it's very easy to get trapped in it, because you think, how else am I going to make that much money, if I'm not a wedding photographer? And it's easy to get trapped. So yeah. Do you know what helped me as well? Like, the last year or so, I've really used LinkedIn a lot, which sounds really weird now, but I promise it's related. So I've used LinkedIn a lot because it has changed so much. Like, LinkedIn is now like this creative place, all these freelancers, creatives. It's not the business suit place anymore
Mm-hmm.
that it was when I signed up, I don't know, in 2012 or something. I don't know when I did, like ages ago. It's so amazing. And there's so many people on there who have had these zigzaggy lives. Um, had a business, freelance, did something else, employed, like had 2 jobs, 3 jobs, bankrupt, and then until, like, I don't know, their fourth or fifth venture finally, blossomed and it worked out. And like, it's so motivating and exciting to see that there's all kinds of lives and journeys out there, and you don't have to be stuck in one life just because you've invested time in it, and just because you're scared you don't have to stay. So that's been really, like, encouraging, just getting out of that bubble, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, LinkedIn still confuses me, but I can kind of see, yeah, that like you said, that you just, people, even though it seems like more businessy, like, yeah, you can celebrate almost all those different parts of your journey and things
Yeah,
on there, maybe more
it
than a
is
lot of other
definitely.
places.
It's a really cool place. It's basically, it looks like, with the timeline and posts, it's just like Facebook, but for creatives. And you actually, like, yeah, learn a lot. I found it really helpful, and you connect with people. You can literally get work from there. Like, it's really, really good, actually. Like, in my case, I don't know that much for weddings, but yeah, we're talking about getting out of weddings. So
Yeah.
if anyone, like, yeah, is interested in, like, yeah, just diving into that more, like, it's such an encouraging,
Mm.
very, very, like, expansive place with so many different lives and businesses, where it's like, what, people do this? It's like,
Yeah,
I've never heard about this. And it's just really interesting.
it is. I think it's a great place to, and I think possibly because of some as well, the way that the algorithms work, of like who it will kind of show up, like, because it will just suggest people, right? Just to actually kind of remind you that there is this whole other big world outside of the, like, you called it, the, the wedding bubble, where everyone is in the same group, speaks with the same people, knows about the same things. And then you go onto a platform like that and you're like, these people probably have no idea about any of this stuff. And it's almost refreshing, sort of permission to become a version of yourself that is not just the label of the wedding photographer. Like,
Yeah,
you can be, those other things that perhaps you want to be, want to do. And yeah, I think it's a really, I love that. I think that's, yeah, a great place to
it
go to
is.
find new people.
Weirdly, yeah, very, very random, but it really is. And
Yeah.
I don't know if any other job does that. Like, because obviously I've only done that one thing, like wedding photography and now portrait photography. But I wonder if any other job is such a big bubble, because when people work in offices and stuff, they go home and they usually leave that at the office, right? And
Mm.
like, they have other friends, they have other things to do and hobbies. And I feel like with wedding photography, it's like I was so wrapped in it. Like, my friends were wedding photographers or wedding vendors. Everything was in that world,
Mm.
almost everything. And it's just, like, very small. And so, like, I
Yeah.
wonder if there's other industries that do that as well. I don't know.
I'm sure there are, but I feel like just the way that the industry works, of, yeah, that you work with the same people often. And yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
I guess.
we'll have to report back on if we find any any others.
I might have to do, like, a poll online, be like, is anyone else as weird as wedding photographers? Like, and I say this with a lot of love, because
Yeah.
yeah, I was one, and we are a bit weird, aren't we? Like, it's
Yeah, and I mean, I think it is. I think it's a wonderful, like, because I don't want this to. Well, I don't think it does anyway, but come across in any way of like bashing the job of being a wedding photographer. I think it's such an amazing way for somebody who is creative, especially in photography, but I think in other areas of the wedding industry too. Someone
yeah,
who has this creative drive, and it's such a great way to to follow that kind of passion of I want to make money from my creativity. It's, you know, the barriers to entry are, you know, almost so low. There's always people getting married for all different budgets. And so it's an amazing thing to do. And, you know, for me as well, I'm so grateful for all the people I've met, all the places I've been, everything I've done on the journey that I've been on and I'm still on in the wedding industry. But at the same time, acknowledging that, yeah, which is the whole reason we're talking today, of the fact that it it doesn't have to be the only part of your journey. It can continue in many directions afterwards. And I think that's, for me,
100%.
that's exciting.
100%. Same for me too. Like just knowing that I want to always be a photographer. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I will, like if it's up to me. I love the medium. I love photography and I love meeting people that way. But now I've also added writing like as something more and more serious, and it takes up more of my time and my heart space and mind space, and people are even paying me for writing. And it's like, oh, it's like this new discovery. I think when you leave any job where you've been like in for a while and you felt like this is my only option, and then you realize, oh no, you actually have other options as well. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you, of course, you have other skills and passions and ideas. And there's people who are interested in those too. And what you feel and want to do creatively, you can express that through different channels. It doesn't just have to be that one. And that's a really exciting discovery to be like, oh my gosh, I can do also this and I can do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a beautiful thing. And I think I wish, like, yeah, just that wedding photographers especially just, yeah, like talk about this more honestly, because I know how everyone complains about it behind the scenes, and everyone's like, oh, exhausted, and you know, or yeah, complain about clients or weddings or whatever, but they never speak about it publicly, you know, about the fact that for most people it will have an expiry date, you know. And
Yeah.
maybe not full on just leaving it completely, but as you said in the beginning, like scaling down and maybe just doing just a handful of weddings a year, you know, where it's not where realistically wedding photography won't be, you know, your main income anymore, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you will do maybe other things. It will just be another thing that you do, you know, instead of your main
Yeah.
income. So whatever option it is, but I think people need to be aware this is not something you're going to do till you're like 70. You're just not doing it.
For me, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, that end date for me changes every year. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, okay, I think next couple of years completely phase out, and then I'm like, oh, but for the right
Mm-hmm.
clients, maybe. You don't want to say completely no, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you know, it's you just have to listen to your instincts, your gut feeling, and trust yourself that you know what's best fit for you.
Yes. Yes, 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 definitely.
Yeah, awesome. This has been a really beautiful chat. I've loved it so much. Thank you so much, Nadia. This has just been wonderful. Um, if people would love to connect with you and follow you and your journey more, where's the best places that they can do that? Well, LinkedIn obviously is one of them.
Yes, please follow me on LinkedIn. It's really fun on there. My name is Nadia Meli on all the channels, everywhere. Instagram, my website, you know, LinkedIn, anywhere, whatever. What else do we have? I think that's it. Pinterest, all the social threads, if anyone's using that anymore. So yeah, it's Nadia Meli. Although my business account on Instagram is the Nadia Meli. It's where I just show more of my work. If you want to see photography, you can do that there. I also offer coaching for photographers. And yeah, also if you're interested in my writing and what I, you know, in my words, I write a weekly newsletter. It's called Life Letters. And you can subscribe on Substack, but all the links are also on Instagram. So you can find, I guess, all the info in that place. Yeah, just get in touch. Even if you just want to
Awesome.
rant about weddings, we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll drop all the links as well in the notes for this so that people can find it super easy.
Thank you, Kat. This was awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, it's been really lovely. Thank you so much. Stop.